Today we're going to read another story by Jan Brett. This story is called Town Mouse, Country Mouse. One of these mice is called Town Mouse and the other is called Country Mouse. In this story, the two mice trade homes. The town mouse goes to live in the country and the country mouse goes to live in the town mouse's home. As you listen to the story, notice the special ways that Jan Brett has illustrated and written this book. One morning, the townhouse mouse woke up shivering from a dream about the kitchen cat who prowled his home. "I need a vacation," he said to his wife. "Let me take you to the countryside where I was born. Life is quiet and peaceful there. The sun shines brightly every day, and the sky is so clear at night you can see all of the stars. And nothing will prepare you for the taste of wild blackberries." "Let's go, right away," she said. So the town mouse and his wife packed a picnic and set off for the country. The country mouse and her husband were at their tree stump home, exhausted from searching for food and avoiding the hungry owl who lived nearby. "Sometimes I wish we lived in a townhouse where all the food you can eat is right there in the pantry. They say that the smell of cheese makes your whiskers tingle." "Mine are tingling already," said her husband. Both mice are afraid of an animal that lives nearby. The town mice are afraid of a cat, and the country mice are afraid of an owl. What do you notice about the two mice's homes? The town mice were outside the country mice's house, putting a huge chunk of cheese in the middle of their picnic cloth. The country mice peered down at it. They heard the town mouse exclaim, "This is the life! Wildflowers, spring peepers. If only we lived here." The country mice crept out. "You like it here?" they asked. "Why, we've always wanted to live in a townhouse." The town mouse offered them a nibble of cheese. "Why don't we trade houses?" he said. "Would you?" asked the country mouse, her mouth stuffed full of the delicious cheese. "We'll leave right away," she said. And as they said goodbye, each of them thought that they had the better part of the deal. It was dark when the country mice arrived in town and found the house. They tiptoed inside and wandered into the sewing room, where they found what they thought was a sumptuous bed, and fell sound asleep. Much too early the next morning, a loud clanging woke them up. Sooty clouds of smoke were pouring over them, and they heard a strange voice purring loudly. "Sauces and ham, it's hungry I am. Sauces and ham, it's hungry I am. Mice and mice stew, wait till I catch you." "Who do you think that is?" the country mouse asked his wife. The country mice go to sleep in what they think is a sumptuous bed. What is it really? And who do you think is cooking up a feast in the kitchen? The town mouse and his wife were up with the birds, ready to gather wild blackberries in the grassy meadow for breakfast. They could smell them, they just couldn't find them. As the town mouse's wife turned to remind her husband to remember the way home, she felt a large wet drop on her head. "What was that?" she asked. "Is the bathtub leaking?" "No, we're in the country now," he said. "Those are raindrops." Just then, lightning lit up the sky, and the rain poured down as the two drenched mice ran wildly for their tree stump home. The country mice were looking forward to their first splendid meal in the pantry. I'm sure there's a ham in the ice chest and rolls in the bread box. But the best smell of all is coming from up there, the country mouse told her husband. It must be a fine old cheese. I'll climb on your shoulders and get it. But she couldn't quite reach it. Stand on your toes, she called. But just as she got a hold of the cheese, her husband lost his balance. The top slammed down and she was left hanging by her tail. Help me! Help me! I'm caught, she said. Back in the country, the town mouse had put on dry clothes. He was especially proud of his bright new jacket. So colorful and eye-catching, he said to his wife. Let's stroll in the forest. We'll come back loaded with acorns and hickory nuts. But their walk was soon interrupted. The town mouse's colorful coat was so eye-catching that it caught the eye of a curious black bird. And if his wife hadn't held him by his foot, he would have been carried off. The black bird isn't the only danger that the town mice face in the country. What else do you notice in the illustrations? On the side of the page, Jan Brett sometimes makes small illustrations that show what might be coming next. The town mice stood quietly together after their awful black bird scare. I thought I'd lost you forever, the town mouse whispered to her husband. They looked around. How still and peaceful it was now. The sun had come out and everything was glistening and green. It's beautiful here, she said. We should try to enjoy it. I know, the town mouse said, but I miss the sound of the town and all the hustle and bustle. Here I feel so alone. And in our cozy townhouse, we knew what to expect, his wife added. So you can see in those side pictures now that there is an owl coming by. The country mice knew to stay at home in a thunderstorm, and they knew what to expect from a hungry owl. But they soon found out that there were different dangers here when they discovered a tasty morsel of blue cheese sitting on a pine board. This time, you take the cheese. I'm still shaking from being caught in the cheese box, the country mouse said. So her husband crept toward the cheese, whiskers trembling. As he reached it, his foot slipped and he heard a whoosh, followed by an enormous snap, and he was thrown across the room. He landed in a warm bundle of something soft and furry. So, what made a whoosh and an enormous snap? On the side of the page, look at the illustration for a cute clue. It says the husband landed in a warm bundle of something soft and furry. What do you think it is? The country mouse was shaking from his close call. I can barely stand, he said. He winced as his wife pulled him up and patted down his crumpled whiskers. It was then that she noticed the bundle on which her husband had landed was tipping and turning. It was alive. Two green eyes snapped open. Run, she cried. Getting a good look at it, it's an owl with teeth. The town mice knew how to avoid mouse traps set with cheese, but they soon found that the country had its own perils when they explored the riverbank hand in hand. Suddenly, the water began to boil and churn, and a huge wet head popped up and stared at them. It was a river otter. The mice tore back to their tree stump home, only to find a hedgehog rolled up in a ball in front of the door. Then they heard an animal crashing toward them through the underbrush. I can't take this anymore, the town mouse quaked, and she ran for the nearest tree with her husband right behind her. From the tree, they could see the town lights blink on as the sun went down and the stars came out one by one. What shall we do? The town mouse asked his wife. But before she could answer, she saw a pair of glowering eyes right behind them, and they were face to face with the most terrifying creature of all. A cat with wings! Shrieked the town mouse. That's it for me, his wife cried. And they ran down the tree and toward the town as fast as their legs could carry them. Why do you think that the town mouse calls the creature a cat with wings? As the town mice were headed frantically along the road, the country mice were fleeing in terror toward the country. Their paths crossed, but neither saw the other. They were so frightened, even the sky seemed to be falling down on them. The country mice didn't stop running until they could see their tree stump in the distance. The town mice kept on running until they reached their townhouse. The musty smell of old wood and smoke from the kitchen all seemed wonderful. Even the street sounds outside sounded cheerful and friendly. There's no place like home, sighed the town mouse, as he and his wife settled into a warm old slipper. There's no place like home. Atop their cozy tree stump house, the country mouse and her husband looked up at a full moon shining down on them. They sighed happily. We missed you, they said together. Back on the road, the cat and the owl had knocked into each other when they collided head on. The cat, slowly waking up, touched his bruised head gingerly. He looked up to see the owl brushing himself off. It was then that he had an idea. Owl, how would you like to trade places with me? I've always wanted to try the simple life in the country. Uh-oh, how do you think that will work out?